just from a competitive standpoint, how he approached every game. And, you just try to, nitpick what you could take from him and, bring it into yourself.
Again, I want to point out that Kawhi was asked about the MJ comparison. He did not make the MJ comparison on his own. And we're talking really about sort of this physical sort of body, and then also what pieces he's taken from Jordan. Do you think it's a good comp? Or?
Yeah, I do in this respect. And I think this is what Doc Rivers was talking about last spring. We forget that Jordan is such this larger-than-life icon, and when we think of him game-winning shots against Utah in '98 over Craig Elo, taking off from the foul line. You forget that on a Wednesday night in February, who was Michael Jordan, and he was a guy who dominated a one-on-one matchup on both ends of the floor with his physicality and his mental prowess. Like when you watch Kawhi sort of hold the ball in a slow-it-down half court, it is very reminiscent in that respect. I am not putting Kawhi Leonard on Michael Jordan's pedestal, but I just think as in possession basketball, when you watch him work, it's almost a throwback early mid-'90s game, and just watching sort of the chess match that Jordan used to play. I mean, Kobe had a little bit of
this. Well, that's what I was going to say. So Kobe he wanted to be Michael Jordan, right? And he emulated that in his shot making and his opportunism during games. Kawhi's kind of emulating the other side.
Yes, defense. But yeah, when people say maybe Kobe, I sort of say efficiency, because Kawhi and Michael Jordan are better efficiently. But yeah, it's two sides of it. It's offensively what Kawhi is able to do, and defensively what he's able to do. Everyone knows. I think there's a small class of people that are defensive players of the year and finals MVP. Kawhi, Jordan, and maybe it's Kareem. We have to check that with our producers. But Hakeem was MVP for the season and defensive player of the year. He's the last guy to do that. Precisely. You have to be so talented on both ends, and he's the new age version of that. But yeah, when you look at Kawhi, he plays with a slow tempo. Right. So it's sort of like you can go back to those standard definition tapes and see the same mannerisms. He gets to his spots, the elbows, the corners, the mid-range, not drunk on the analysis of or the analytics of the three-point shot. That was a slower burn to his game. He added that maybe once he got to Toronto. It's like, I can knock down a three when I need to, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to get to my spot. And he's never rushed. That's why he's getting clutch.
See, you made a VHS reference. I made a gin and juice reference at the top of the show. Josh is in our studio today. He doesn't understand what any of those are.
He has no clue. He was born in '97.
The youngsters are having trouble with this show today. I want to get to that Timberwolves-Sixers matchup that we got, because both teams won on Saturday. Both teams without their all-star centers, Karl-Anthony Towns and Joel Embiid, were suspended for their fight last week. Now, they each have one game left on their suspension. I was excited because I thought they were playing again, but they're not playing until March 24th. Still, I want to know who had the better centerless win, because Philly was over Portland, Minnesota was over Washington.
Sorry, Washington. I have to rock with this Portland-Philly matchup just because they didn't take a lead into 4 seconds left or so. The shot was sort of kind of like Kawhi in that corner, came from an unknown face for Korkmaz. But I love that game just because it sort of reminded us that, okay, Philly has not been in the finals, Eastern Conference finals, even since 2001. So now this is a team that's coming out with a purpose. They've had their heart broken. We all saw Joel Embiid's face as the playoffs ended. And this is a team that whoever's on the floor, and that's the good addition of having Al Horford. Whoever's on the floor, we are here to win. We play every second. Every shot is a good shot because they learned that trying to go to the Eastern Conference Finals last year.
Yeah, and I talked about it earlier. I'm still going to stand by it. So far, the game of the year, and a couple things. We saw it just right there. Ben Simmons driving to the hole in a crucial situation, probably going to get hit, probably going to be put on the line, and calmly sinks 2 free throws. I don't want to put undue import on one possession, but I just think that's the kind of catalyzing play that can really make a difference. And then Korkmaz, this is a team. Well, where are they going to get shooting from? Who's going to be there? They don't have a Bellinelli or that kind of acquisition they made 2 years ago. Hey, there's a really big shooter who can come off a flare and do this kind of stuff.
Inside pivot.
We've got the confidence to execute a play like that. I just think this is one of those galvanizing wins for a team that, frankly, I think the two most interesting teams right now in basketball are the Sixers and the Lakers in terms of narrative, in terms of sort of just tantalizing us with potential dramatic storylines. Yeah. And to me, the Sixers are sort of coming off on the right foot. Last year they kind of, it was a little touch and go at the beginning, and I just think it's a really big win for them.
I think there are many teams with tantalizing narratives. In fact, the Dallas Mavericks played some pretty fun games over the weekend. Up next, we're going to talk about LeBron and Luka Doncic racking up triple-doubles against each other. Now, LeBron did win the head-to-head matchup, but we're going to talk about who had the more impressive weekend overall. First, though, it's our second distant replay of the day. Richard Jefferson.
Yeah, big
This
break.
date in 2002 is the day of the jump analysts on Distant.
RJ
On the floor. Oh! Not just a spot-up shooter.
I'm glad he's not here for this because, you know,
We would never hear the end
we
of
never
it.
hear the end. You just have it on repeat.
That's okay. I spent time this weekend with RJ and Gilbert Arenas.
Oh.
He's averaging 22 points, 18.7 boards this season. Janae's Drummond more dominant than he gets credit for.
He is. He's a walking double-double. But the gag is, and my Kiki Palmer-Royce, he's in Detroit. They're 3-4, so like no one's really going to talk about you until you do something in the playoffs. But nonetheless, he is a walking double-double.
Hey, this dates back to last season. He picked it up. I mean, he's a guy who had intensity issues the first couple of years of me coming out of UConn. This is real. Like, he's a real contributor.
Improved his free throw shooting,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And improved his defense.
There's that. In the East, though, if you can't make the playoffs in the East, that says something. So you need to.
You got to do
To
it.
your point, you need to
Gotta
get
do
it done in the postseason.
They need Blake back.
But before you get to the postseason, you got to do this. There you go.
Show out.
Blazers running out of big man. They announced Zach Collins will have shoulder surgery. He is out indefinitely. Add him to the list of injured setters. That includes Yusuf Nurkic, Pau Gasol, Hassan Whiteside. Now, Whiteside likely probable to return tonight. Do you guys think Portland weathers this storm, Kevin?
I mean, weather with a few shingles falling in the front yard. I mean, it's tough because again they have real depth issues on the front line because of these injuries. You know, they had Anthony Tolliver, who's a wonderful spot-up guy for your second unit, not a guy who's going to be your primary rim protector in the Western Conference. So it's tough. They're going to have to buy some time.
And the load that CJ and Dame carry is so much. I think there's always a stat every year. Who runs the most in the NBA? CJ's always number one. Dame's always top 5. So yes, they're capable, but should they have to? Man, that stinks.
Yeah, LeBron and Luka Doncic having an epic showdown Friday night. This game was so fun. Lakers beating the Mavs in overtime. Then both players recorded triple-doubles on Sunday. So, Chene, who overall had the better weekend, LeBron or Luka?
Chene had the best weekend going to Stanford and seeing my sister get a big win
boy,
with
there
Team
we go.
USA against my Stanford Cardinal. But with regard to these two, yes, I think it's actually Luka, just because we all expect this from LeBron James, but you know, everyone talks about sophomore slump. Luka is getting better. This just might be who Luka is, giving you triple doubles and a potential MVP in the NBA.
I mean, this is kind of cool, and you can see how much Luka acknowledges what he owes to LeBron in terms of game, in terms of player profile, just in terms of approach. Like, it's just a cool. I mean, we live in a great basketball era, and these two guys personify it.
Yeah, I mean, I think LeBron had the better weekend just because there's so much pressure on
And
the
they won.
Lakers. The stakes are so much higher, and they won both of those games. But you know, Luka's had a nice weekend too. There's been a lot of discussion about Kyrie Irving's leadership style this season, and he addressed it directly to Joe Varden of The Athletic, saying, quote, "True leadership comes from the way your actions speak. It's just not trying to overemphasize what leadership means all the time and over-explaining it in terms of this is me as a leader. Because truth be told, there's not just one leader in the locker room." So, Janae, do you think that Kyrie is showing growth as a leader here with this kind of quote?
I think it's early, but yes, he's showing growth by saying the right things because he always got caught up with what he said, probably saying too much, talking about his coaches, talking about his teammates. If he talks about himself in a very self-deprecating way, a way that empowers people, yeah, I believe in his leadership, but at the end of the day, I think you have to walk that walk. How will he empower his teammates? How will he empower a Karis LeVert, a Spencer Dinwiddie, you know, those type of guys that will say, yeah, he's a great leader, he can take a lot of shots, but how are you gonna make me better? That's what people want to see.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like asking me how my no-sugar New Year's resolution is going on January 12th. And I think the question is if they're 19 and 22 halfway through, and Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie and others who are team guys are like, God, this is a lot more fun last year.
Wow.
We were surging to the 6th seed, and if the same dynamic presents itself that presented itself in Boston, how does Kyrie respond? You know, and I think that's the question. It's not that I don't trust his sincerity. I just think we can't really put it to the test until there are real consequences. And there is a bar there. And the parallels are so amazingly close to last season. Just a team that kind of, a Cinderella team the previous season came together, overachieved, guys found their best selves, overperformed, and then Kyrie comes into no fault of his, and is the performance going to be there? And I mean, that's the question. I think they're a good, not great team. And the question is if there is a sort of an undercurrent of, well, you know, like what's different here?
We saw this past week several of the Nets players jump in to defend Kyrie. Now, I don't think that story that Jackie McMullen wrote really needed defending because
No.
it was a much wider, more nuanced story. But the fact that those players had his back so quickly
Says
and so
something.
automatically says something to me about the feeling there is
Yep.
with him on that team right now. You can just always tell. It's the way the Sixers acted around Markelle Fultz last
Yep.
year. You're like, oh, that tells me something I might
got
not
his
be
back.
seeing on the surface. I want to get real quick to our League Pass game of the night. Sixers, Suns.
Ooh.
Joel Embiid, as mentioned, serving the second game of his 2-game suspension. But Philadelphia is still looking to climb to 6-0 this season. So real quick, Kevin, do you think the Suns have what it takes to beat the last undefeated team in the NBA, the Sixers?
I love what the Suns are doing right now. I think the Sixers have more on them. I think they're a team on a mission until they land back in Philadelphia. I think they'll win out this trip.
Don't sleep on the Suns. Our researcher Schwartz has been a Suns fan for a long time. And we
Michael.
talk about your team. I like Kelly Oubre. I like Devin Booker. I like Aaron Baines playing great. So, yeah.
No,
don't
I
sleep
think
on
Aaron
him.
Baines was a big pickup
Big
for
pickup.
them, one of the more underrated. We will see. Maybe producer Schwartz will finally be happy tonight. We'll find out. Thanks to these guys. We're back on ESPN tomorrow.